You're welcome to this class. Today we are going to be looking at compound interest. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to recall the formula for simple interest. Secondly, you should be able to find the amounts that the principal will reach over a given period of time at the rate of simple interest. Thirdly, you should be able to find the amount that the principal will reach over a given period of time at the rate of compound interest. And lastly, you should be able to apply the principles of compound interest to daily life problems, including inflation and depreciation. Now, you should recall that interest is a payment given for saving money. It can also be a price paid for borrowing money. Now, when interest is calculated on the basic sum of money saved or borrowed, it is referred to as simple interest. Now, to calculate simple interest, you use the formula I equals to PRT over 100. In this regard, I is a simple interest, P is the principal, R is the rate, and T is the time taken. Now, what is compound interest? When we save or borrow money with simple interest, the interest will continue to grow at regular interval, and the principal will remain the same. The principal will remain untouched. Now, with compound interest, the interest is added to the principal at the end of each interval. Thus, the principal increases and so the interest becomes greater for each year. Now, how do you find the compound interest on 60,000 naira for 2 years at 8% per annum? Please note that per annum means each year and the interest is added at 1 year interval. Solution. In the first year, you use the formula I equals PRT over 100 to calculate the interest. Now you substitute the values of P, R, and T respectively to have I equals to 60,000 times 8 times 1 divided by 100. Multiplying and dividing. Multiplying 60,000 by 8 and dividing by 100. You have your answer to be I to be equals to 4,800 naira. Amount at the end of first year will now be equals to principal plus interest, which will be 60,000 naira plus 4,800. Adding up, we have 64,800 naira. For the second year, you still use the formula I equals PRT over 100 to find the interest. But the only change here is that the principal has changed from 60,000 naira to the new principal, which is now 64,800 naira. Now P will be 64,800. Substitute the values for P, R, and T to have I to be equals to 64,800 times 8 times 1 divided by 100. By the time you multiply the values at the numerator, 64,800 times 8 times 1, all divided by 100, multiply and divide, you have your answer to be 5,184. The amount at the end of second year will still be the principal plus interest. Do not forget that the principal is now 64,800 naira, then plus interest, which is 5,184. We have 64,000 plus 5,184 to give us 69,184. Now the compound interest will now be the amount at the end of the second year minus the initial amount. That is 69,184 minus 60,000 naira. We have 9,184. Find the amount that 5,000 naira becomes if saved for 3 years at 6% per annum compound interest. Solution. In the first year, you will recall that the principal is 5,000 naira. Now 6% interest on 5,000 naira, we have 6% of 5,000 naira, which will be 6% times 5,000 naira. Multiplying and dividing 6 over 100 times 5,000 naira, we have 6% of 5,000 naira to be equals to 300 naira. You sum 5,000 naira and 300 to have 5,300. The new principal is now 5,300. Now, for the second year, the principal has become 5,300 naira. 6% interest of 5,300 naira will now be equals to 6% times 5,300. Multiplying and dividing, you have 318. Now you sum of 5,300 and 318 to have 5,618. This is the new principal. The third year, the principal has become 5,618. Then 6% interest of 5,618 will now be 6 over 100 times 5,618. Multiplying and dividing, we have 337.08. Summing up, we have 5,955 naira 08 kobo. Depreciation. What is depreciation? Many items such as cars, clothes, and electrical goods lose value as time passes. We call this loss in value depreciation. It is usually given as a percentage of the item's value at the beginning of the year. For example, if a radio that costs 10,000 naira depreciates by 20% per annum, then its value will be 8,000 naira at the end of the first year. 20% of 10,000 naira is 2,000 naira. Subtracting 2,000 naira from 10,000 naira will give us 8,000 naira. At the end of the second year, the value will now be 8,000 minus 20% of 8,000 naira. 20% of 8,000 naira is 1,600. Subtracting it from 8,000 naira will now be 6,400. A car that costs 680,000 naira depreciates by 25% in its first year and 20% in its second year. Find its value after 2 years. Now, to solve this, recall that in the first year, the value of the car is 680,000 naira. Then 25% depreciation, which is 25 over 100 times 680,000 naira. Multiplying and dividing this, we have 25% to be 170,000 naira. Then you subtract this from the value of car. Now you have 510,000 naira. Now for the second year, the value of the car have reduced to 510,000 naira. Now 20% depreciation of 510,000 naira will be 20 over 100 times 510,000 naira. This will give us 102,000 naira. Then you subtract this and you get 408,000 naira, which will be the value after 2 years. Now, what's the meaning of inflation? Due to rising prices, money lose value over time. We refer to this as inflation. It is usually given as a percentage increase in the cost of buying things from one year to another. For example, if the rate of inflation is 15% per annum, then a chair that cost 10,000 naira last year will now cost 11,500 naira. Why? Because 15% of 10,000 naira is 1,500. Add this to the initial cost, which is 10,000 naira, you have 11,500. So since it now costs more to buy the same chair, money has lost its value. Now, how long will it take prices to double if the rate of inflation is 20% per annum? You start with an initial cost of 100 units. Now, solution. Initial cost is 100 units. Now, 20% rise, which is 20 over 100 times 100, will give us, by the time we multiply and divide, we have 20 units. Adding up, the cost after 1 year is 120 units. Now, for the second year, the cost is now 120 units, remember? So 20% of 120 units will give us 20 over 100 times 120, which will be 24. Summing up, we have 144 units as the cost after 2 years. For the third year, the cost is now 144 units. Now 20% of the cost, which is 20% of 144, will now give us 28.8 by the time you multiply and divide. Now, summing up, we have 172.8 units, which will be the cost after 3 years. Now, for the fourth year, the cost now is 172.8 units. 20% of 172.8, which is 20 over 100 times 172.8, will give us 34.56 units. Summing up, you have the cost after 4 years to be 207.36 units. Now, the cost after 4 years, which is 207.36, is more than double the initial cost, which is 100. Hence, price will double in just 4 years.